since I've written a book on Sati, I might just first talk about Sati, then we can discuss caste and Padma, because caste system is actually related to British census policies. Okay, so to briefly talk about Sati, you know, we were, at least when I was in school, that guilt complex that is thrust on you, that you used to burn women. So what are you, championing? What cause are you championing? Because yours was such a degraded society and culture. But the fact of the matter is very different. I'll just briefly sum it up. There was no religious sanction to Sati. I've examined so many texts beginning from the Rig Veda up till the 17th century, and 99.9% of them condemn it. And they say that Sati is like black magic. You will not get anything. And all the texts recommend a chaste life for a widow. They say that the widow should lead a chaste life. There is no religious sanction to widow immolation in the ancient texts. Now, what happens is that it is very interesting that all the accounts that we get of Sati are from Bengal, where Bengal does not have a tradition of Sati. Sati was an institution that was actually restricted to Rajasthan, largely to Rajasthan, Sati and Johar. And the reason for that is that these people were engaged in warfare against invaders. And the women did not want to fall into the hands of the invaders. So they reasoned that if our husband is going to lose the war or his army is going to lose, we will collectively commit Johar or instances of Sati. In fact, two recorded instances of Sati are first when Alauddin Khalji attacked Chittor, and the second when Akbar attacked. So these are recorded instances of Sati and Johar. I mean, not Sati, but of Johar. But the individual cases that we get from Rajasthan are also not before the 9th century. So to say that Sati is an ancient custom is wrong. I did a statistical analysis of how many cases of Sati there were. I'm by no chance saying that Sati was not there. The first authentic recorded case of Sati is in the time of Alexander, when Alexander came to India. When he was going back, that he had a troop of Indian soldiers. So one of them died. And then his two widows came and they started quarreling among themselves who will immolate with him. So the Greek soldiers were absolutely stunned and shocked. So that is an eyewitness account. Then we have an inscription mentioning Sati, and that is 5th century AD. So if you're talking about Alexander 4th century and 5th century AD, so you can imagine how many hundreds of years have passed. And this inscription that we have is of a widow whose husband has died in battle. So then we have Ibn Battuta. He was a Moroccan traveler, and he came to India, and he records that, at this place, I saw 3 women ready to immolate themselves. And he says, why are they immolating? He says that their husbands had died fighting the Sumras in Sindh. So he even gives the location where the husbands had died. So there is no reason for us to disbelieve. The point to note is that the instances of Sati, first of all, were never sanctioned by any religious text. They were very few and far between. The point is, how is it suddenly in the 19th century, we hear of 50,000 annual immolations, 90,000 annual immolations. So these reports were actually mostly prepared by British missionaries. Because the East India Company said, we have come to India to make money. We have not come here on a reform agenda. So we will not allow missionaries to operate in the territory that we have conquered, because we don't want to disrupt the trade, etc. And if any missionary comes in British controlled territory, we will send them back on the next ship. So this is what they did. They were so particular. But the missionaries, they were determined to convert. So they presented the case to the British Parliament. And there they concocted figures. They said, so many thousands of widows are emulating every year. And it's very interesting that the British missionaries never talked about the number of women who were being burnt as witches in England at the same time. And so, in any case, under the pressure, and the whole thing was so well orchestrated. I've discussed how this campaign was orchestrated, manufacturing a debate, if I can put it that way. And then finally, Parliament gave them the right to convert. And when William Bentinck came to India, he abolished Sati. Now, what is most surprising that after William Bentinck abolished Sati, we don't hear of a single case in Bengal of Sati. Can you imagine that the population abided by the edict so faithfully? Even today, with all the means of communication, no government order is implemented and accepted on day one. So it shows that, and even today, the widows of Bengal, you'll find them in Vrindavan. The tradition was that they would go to Vrindavan rather than to commit sati. So the whole, it's a manufactured debate, as I said, manufactured by British missionaries. And one more thing, the French were in India, and there is one very famous French Jesuit missionary, Abbe de Boy. He lived in India for almost 3 decades. And he wrote back letters which have been published under the title Letters on the State of Christianity in India. And he talked about the South. And he says everywhere, first of all, he said the Baptist missionaries are defaming. He's a Jesuit missionary. He's talking about Jesuit Baptist missionaries defaming India. And he says that here I see shaved widows everywhere. What are they talking about? So he's talking about shaved widows that he sees all over. And he says that in 30 years of living in India, I don't think I've come across even a single instance of sati in the South. And he says, what's even more important, he says that the Hindus are a conversion resistance population. He said in 3 decades, I don't think I've been able to convert 3. They cannot be converted. So he makes 2 very important points. One is that the sati was a phenomena that was exaggerated by the British Baptist missionaries, and he didn't see anything in the South. And he says he sees widows with shaved head. And then he also talks about the absolute impossibility of converting the people.